But would the Wright brothers be able to succeed in the environment today in
Oh
Dayton, Ohio?
no,
You
no,
know,
there would be regulation against it, I'm sure.
yeah, I think they would probably come and arrest them
Yeah,
for zoning, some sort of something in the code somewhere they can find,
right.
or or interpret in the code because there's a lot of vagueness in governmental language purposefully. Um,
Yes.
that yeah, the Wright brothers. I don't think maybe someone could make an argument. Maybe Gary Leitzel would argue for it, but
Oh,
I don't think the the Wright
don't get
brothers.
me started on that. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they would allow the Wright brothers to do what they did back then. Now,
yeah.
or like claim that you were on a nuisance property while you developed your airplane. Therefore, we own the airplane and all manifestations of said airplane.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but hey, I had a question I wanted to ask you and see if you had any thoughts. I'm gonna ask some other people too. Is to we're talking today about eliminating our coverage of city commission
Mm-hmm.
because there is no interest whatsoever in the city of Dayton, in the county, and it's not something I want to say is true, but I can look through all of our statistical logs. There is
Mm-hmm.
certainly no compelling monetary reason to cover, and eventually, all type of organizations have to justify themselves in their efforts monetarily. There is no interest in the Dayton City Commission or city government among um, residents. It's almost zero.
Wow.
And why is this? Do you think? Maybe the form of city government. It's a city manager, very corporate friendly form where the commissioners really have zero power. The mayor has no power.
Right,
He's
right,
he's a figure, a figurehead kind of ambassador for the city.
right.
I know Gary personally, and I think he's probably much more progressive before he became mayor than he's allowed to be now because basically the structure of the government is that he's the face of this machine,
Right,
and there is the city manager is the leader.
right,
You know,
right,
he's the true leader. He's deciding what's going on. No one elected him. He has
right.
a long history with economic development organizations in the area. Same old American story being played out, at least in this case. And can there be any healing of urban areas without uh, any kind of political interest among the citizens? I mean, it's like you can do whatever you want, basically. I mean, I almost get to the point where I'm like, I feel like they could come out and say, we're passing legislation to cut the third toe off of each child with freckles,
Right.
and the population just
Well, they don't mean my child, so
yeah,
that's
not my
okay.
kid,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, I'm I just and I know there's got to be some kind of sociological reason for this. You see American cities crumbling. All these bad social problems all around us, and absolutely, and I know there is reasons. But from a social level, why is there just a complete and utter disregard or interest in local government? Is it government's fault? Is it the people's fault? Is it the media's fault? Any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of all of the above, right? I mean, I think there's been a concerted effort to really demonize government in this country and sort of marginalize government. And we see it from both sides of the aisle, but I'd say much more from the conservative side. That's why there's all this talk about small government, get the government out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in some ways that plays a role in it. But I also think part of it is this idea that that folks finally have figured out, even if they don't articulate it, that it really doesn't matter what they do, or at least they feel that way. It doesn't really matter what they do. The machine's going to roll along as the machine rolls along. And so why waste your time? Participating in something that you really don't have any control over. And I was just having a discussion with a friend, and she was like, I'm not going to vote. And you probably think that's terrible that I'm not going to vote. And I said, no, I don't think it's terrible. You can do whatever you like. And she said, but, it really doesn't matter who I vote for. Because it's all rigged anyway. And, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. So why should I play the game?
Sure, I've met more impressive people at the typical local tavern than the Republican candidates right now, and to me that just says they're purposely putting up clowns for a show because it's all decided. About that too,
like this whole idea of the spectacle, right? Mm-hmm. So this is if you're not really fond of sports, you can watch politics instead, mm-hmm. and have as much enjoyment, mm-hmm. And I don't know if there's necessarily a sociological literature on all of this, but I mean, it's people keep talking about apathy, and I don't think that folks are as apathetic as we seem to believe they are, because I don't think the Occupy movement would have taken off as it has. Mm-hmm. But I do think that this idea that the Occupy movement is something that works outside of the system is really an important point, because that really, to me, demonstrates that folks recognize that they don't really have any power working in the system, mm-hmm. that the system is broken, and the only way to actually get anything done is to pressure from outside, not work within the system. Mm-hmm. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, because I was talking to a few months back a lady named I can't her entire name, Panastasios, I believe was her name. She's a writer for like Cleveland Scene magazine, and mm-hmm. she's actually even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a lot of her photography. And she was saying, Montgomery County elected Kasich. What's going on down there?
Right.
And without going into the history of the area and the economic woes, I'm like, it is the most apathetic arena. One could certainly argue that Apathy elected Gary Leitzel.
Right.
Totally unknown. He was a neighborhood president for the Walnut Hills Neighborhood Association. Certainly no big political name, and just decided to go out and basically, with his feet, go out and become mayor. And there's such I kind of like, I was a big, supporter of Gary becoming mayor, just mm-hmm. because I was like, this old, tired, Democratic show that goes on, and it's the same thing, anything but that,
Right.
In some aspects, I think he's been good as far as being an outspoken person, willing to engage in dialogue.
Right.
Much more, I say, than Ryan McClellan, which she was kind of like, hello, kind of like on the, almost like a political beauty pageant type thing, where there wasn't that much there. There is some of that with Gary, but at the same time, he's the representative of this machine.
Right.
Wait,
and I mean, and that goes to another.
Yeah, and he's not going to say, the police chief, you're throwing so many black kids in jail that it's the modern form of Jim Crow. Even if all the facts would bear him out, mm-hmm. And even if the police chief knows, that's true. I've come into this evil system as well. Just I didn't make it up, so don't point a finger at me. But that's not going to be said in this form of government, and so what's the point?
And that goes to another thing that I was talking to this friend about, and this idea that even if you are rather principled and outspoken when you enter the office, a lot of times that doesn't continue. You just sort of get absorbed by the machine in one form or another. And whether that means just like going along to get along, or whatever it means, or if you start actually believing the message, whatever leads to that fact. I mean, that's really what it seems happens eventually. there are very few. I mean, I can only think of a couple of politicians that I would say, still espouse the values and ideals that they did when they entered office. Like maybe five, you know. Um, and so, I mean, I think that speaks a lot to the way our system operates. It's like a popularity contest. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think about recently this whole idea, like having a poll every 10 minutes, like, oh God, now you better change your shirt, and
Yeah.
oh, you don't like blue shirts, so change it, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, even I can even talk about some of the people, when you were talking about like the local Occupy movement. And I know they engaged quite a bit with the mayor, but if you've read the city charter, the city manager has all the power.
Right.
All these unelected bureaucrats basically have the power, and they were wasting their time
Right.
talking with him because
Right.
he doesn't have any power. He doesn't really he has no coalition votes, and so that's the other thing. I was like, the citizens here don't really know who's in power.
Right.
They'll say like, oh, we want the mayor to turn the city around, but the mayor goes to, he's the guy who cuts the ribbons.
Yeah,
He takes the shovel at the press conferences.
Right.
He doesn't really, develop policy. They can have like an influence and like say, hey, we'd like to maybe try to think. Can you think of doing this?
Right.
This is really as far as it goes.
Right. So he gets the credit and he takes the fall basically for the stuff that other people are doing.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, at least in the city of Dayton, is like we don't even really know who our leadership is and how it operates at all.
Right.
A few people do, who are tuned
Right.
in, to the system and know what a city manager form of government is, which is kind of like the leading proponent of corporatism as a form of government.
Right. Right.
Maybe there's some meat for the occupiers in the
Right.
Occupy movement, because it is, the city government of Dayton is designed to be an efficient corporate machine.
Oh, certainly. But the funny thing is, I think when some of the Occupy folks actually drew the attention to the fact, they got a lot of flack from folks that were real pro Dayton, folks that would otherwise maybe have been on board with some of the other message of Occupy. And I mean, even Leitzel in his most recent article on the Occupy movement in the Dayton City paper, talked about, like, oh, you should vote. It's not our government. It's the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So your beef is with the federal government, which I think is hilarious because our local government are just microcosms of the federal government. And so, I mean, it's just an abbreviated version, and we see exactly the same thing play out, right? Like, the county and the city kind of coming together. On the very same day, the county changing the rules for Dave Hall Plaza.
Oh yeah, they did the
That whole thing, and
it
it was like, oh wait, no, you're not like the federal government at all. You're not changing the rules or doing anything. No.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of to say that no one was everyone was working, completely above board.
Yeah.
They did the. I mean, I was looking over the video with what's her name? Downtown Dayton partnership lady.
Sandy.
Sandy, yes. Gudorf, yes. I couldn't remember her last name. And she's like, "We'll bring you back here,"
Yeah.
and making all these promises, and she, legally insinuated that this was a government document signed by the county administrator.
It was on county stationery.
Yeah, and on a county
Had city
stationery.
commissioners on it as well.
Yeah, so that whole thing really wasn't, once they kind of like, I think they had you guys where they wanted you, it was in.
Right.
I don't know that. I can't say that was said behind, closed doors, but, when you look when you observe a situation, kind of looks like it, like,
exactly. Yeah. All roads lead to this solution. Yeah.
Dog's going crazy there. Yeah. Shut up, Carmen. I'll have to cut that out. But anyway, yeah, that's the. I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
if
And
residents are
I
going to be
wasn't
ever interested
aware
again,
of
or
how apathetic the area actually was. I mean, I knew I didn't see a lot of action, but I kind of had my nose to the grindstone for 3 years, taking care of my folks, and
yeah.
so I guess I wasn't that aware.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then when we started trying to really organize, I was amazed. We had that. I don't know if you saw the thing that we did in June. It was put on by Putting People First, and we had the funeral march, and we marched from Courthouse Square to Garden Station, and we actually had a mock funeral for Ohio because of the budget and the
Okay.
attacks on workers, and we worked really hard to organize that, and we had 100 people about,
Okay.
and I was really disappointed. And people said, "No, that's really good."
Yeah. For Dayton. Well,
And
that's yeah.
I'm like, really? 100 people? That was good?
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And,
hard to
and
get
then I
people
hear,
out.
like Cincinnati's got, activism galore, Columbus, I mean, every
Hmm.
other city of
Well,
any
they
size.
have much more robust economies too. You know.
Yeah. But Cleveland, I mean, really? I mean, they don't have the greatest economy, do they?
Yeah. Well, and one could say, at least like the Democratic Party in Montgomery County, you can't really consider that progressive filled with progressives.
Right, right.
I mean, I interviewed, Matt Joseph prior to the Dayton City Commission election, and I had Mark Manovich, one of the independent candidates, had brought up,
Mhm.
should we have legalized drugs in this country? Obviously, it's a federal and state issue, but at a local issue, their local level, they could do things like, Ann Arbor, Michigan, I think at one time had a $5 fine for, getting caught smoking a joint or something like that.
Right, right.
To bring, there's something right there. I know Daytonians probably want, because I see Daytonians walking around the streets smoking weed all the time.
Well, and
I
it's stupid to throw
want.
somebody into jail for that,
What's that?
when the bankers are, still flying high and they've stole billions.
Sure, and there are shootings going on in the parking lots of alcohol establishments almost
Right.
every week. You
Yeah.
know, just like clockwork almost anymore. There's someone gets shot in the back of a bar at like 3 in the
Right.
morning after, the idiocy enrages.
Right.
And that's our national pastime drug. That's just
Right.
everyone that's totally promoted. You know,
Oh yeah.
and so you've got so there's one thing but Joseph told me, he said, well, I have to see more information. So more information on that to really convince
Wow.
me. I'm like, Lord, you've got countries like Portugal where the crime rate goes.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
but I mean, I really wonder, is it less about the crime rate and more about the prison rate and prison populations? I mean, look at
mhm.
the laws that they changed in Arizona that are going to, really contribute to the bottom line of the prison industrial complex in
Well,
Arizona.
don't
By
don't they have to keep? Aren't they? Don't they have to keep the wheels of that Leviathan rolling?
Sure,
Or
exactly. So, I mean, what if you decriminalize a lot of these things that really don't seem like much of a crime?
uh
Then you'd have empty beds, and some people are making a lot of money on making sure that not only are they full, but they're over full.
sure, but it's also causing havoc in society as well.
Of course it is,
Massive
but
havoc.
I mean, is that the worry of the folks that are in control
No,
and that are purchasing the elections?
no, it's money, cash money.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, when we have these kinds of discussions, it's depressing, right?
it
And I
is.
mean, and it's very cynical because
It's
we know
hard.
that this is the system, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have a choice, I think, at this point. If you know that this is the system in which we operate, you can either get angry and get moving, or you can withdraw and ignore it, right? And it's exhausting to
Or
be
get in
angry
the
all the time.
or become a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, or become a part of it, But I think more often than not, folks just like, it's easier to pretend like that it's not the case. And it's really easy with the mainstream media
Yeah.
promoting, the crap that it does, right? Because it's very easy to ignore reality if you listen to mainstream
Well,
media.
the we have a lot of run-ins with media people ourselves, and not while there are some smart and aware media people in Dayton, really in the minority.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
the TV people almost, I mean, almost to a T. We've met a couple bright people on TV, but like off-duty type of things, they don't
Right,
talk
right.
about journalistic type things.
Talk about anything that's
Yeah, they're just talking about fluff
Yeah.
crap like that you hear people at the mall
Right.
talking about or whatever. Not like these. It's like, oh, these really aren't very deep people, unfortunately.
But we don't. I mean, we don't have much journalistic analysis at all. And I mean, one of the first newspapers I look at is The Guardian,
Mm-hmm.
and I can find out more about what's happening in the U.S. more immediately from The Guardian
Mm-hmm.
than I can by looking at most papers in the U.S.
Sure.
At least traditional media outlets, right? So I mean, that's a sad state of affairs.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the best pieces of analysis that I saw when Wisconsin started their big protests against Walker's attack on workers.
Mm-hmm.
It came from India.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a great analysis, and I'm like, oh yeah, here it is. Here's exactly what's happening there, and that they had this really wonderful in-depth analysis that was missing from every mainstream media outlet in the U.S. So I mean, but that's not by accident, right? I mean, once again, we go back to who owns the media.
Mm-hmm.
It's folks, Murdoch primarily, and let's make sure that folks don't know what's going on, and we'll give them our version of the truth. And
yeah, and here locally, we've got, I think, Fox that owns 2 stations. We've got Cox Communications, one of the largest communications behemoths in
Right.
the world, and yeah, they're not going to report the news from a non-corporate centric viewpoint, and that's not going to happen. Yeah, I've had people ask me, and they're like, why haven't someone hired you guys?
well, maybe current TV, right? You guys could go with Keith Olbermann, and that might be okay.
Well, I think we're going to take it into more the direction actually of the Keith Olbermann, the Young Turks type of commentary, because kind of the straight take, at least on the kind of government issues locally,
Right.
are not going anywhere. No one's paying attention to them.
Right.
The voices of the people on the street are like what people really like. So we're going to just take more stuff, street reporting type interviews, roundtables. I'm still working on that show.
Right.
Bar owners aren't the greatest people to get back with you. But we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do it here. Yeah, let's do it here, and then we could all have it around the table, and we could cook, and we don't have to worry about giving someone advertising or something. That's what we're going to do. Okay.
That's not good.
Okay, well, I'll get a hold of you through Facebook about that. Then we can set our lighting up right. You're right.
Yeah,
we'll have to screw with some other place.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yes, that's what we'll do. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's about it.
Okay.
And
it was fun.
Yes. Would you?
I hope your New Year's off to a better start than the end of your year went.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the whole the month of December, it was just a turd.
Yeah. Well, one nice thing about you're getting the ticket on the way to wherever we were, Troy or wherever it was that I remembered that I had to purchase my tag. So I thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. I'm like, oh crap, I haven't sent mine in either. So I appreciate that. So hopefully I won't get a ticket.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Speaking of the ticket, I didn't pay it. And if I drive and they catch me, I won't.
No, it's on my license. God, can you believe her?
Yeah, I can. I forget stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, that's like I said. I'm like, oh God, I'm so glad you reminded me of the tags.
Yeah, oh, too much. Well, hey, if you would be interested in doing this some more, I would be greatly appreciative, and we can talk about local issues. The different stuff that I've done with different people, kind of like these Skype interviews. I'm going away from I think where we're going to kind of go is keep any official voices completely out of the media.
Yeah.
Because they're already in there. They've already got their, they already have 3 television stations, their own thing to voice whatever they're doing. But, I like the voice of the people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I can see why folks actually enjoy that a lot more. It's especially when you do those interviews on the street. I really enjoy those because those are really thoughtful folks. Mm-hmm. and they aren't scripted, right? They're saying how they feel and what they've observed, and I think that's really important because a lot of these other things, even though we know like half the time when we're listening to them that they are scripted and that that whether or not they're even truthful is up for debate. I mean, that's just boring television, I guess, right? So it's much more interesting, I think, to get to know some of the folks in the community. Like, wow, that's cool. I'd like to talk to that person. That would be great.
Sure. And if you have suggestions of people you think we should interview, you know how to get a hold of me.
Okay, definitely.
Anyway, I'm gonna head off for the afternoon. Can I use some of this?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll send you like
Just not the part where I like swear or anything like that.
Yeah, no problem. What I do, I'll send you. I won't have any curse words or anything like that.
Okay.
I'll post it for you to check out first too.
Okay.
You can view it from there.
Okay, great.
Take care of yourself. You have a great day. Keep on keeping on.
You do the same.
All right. Bye bye.